Greetings, friends. David J. Coon with Qigong Awareness, author of Qigong for Beginners, Your Path to Greater Health and Vitality. Today, in episode number 25, 25 episodes. I was going to do one episode, I don't know, kind of every other week or something, but I got too fired up. And I'm knocking out about 25 episodes in, I don't know, about 2 or 3 weeks now, maybe 3 weeks. I'd have to go back and look. Anyway, let's move on. So, in this particular episode, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about something that you may have heard of in the spiritual community. Sometimes I think it's overdone in some respects and underdone in other respects. And I'm going to reference the name, which you may be familiar with, which is called the book Power of Now by Eckart Tolle. A good book. I personally think that New Earth is even better. Eckart Tolle, I think, is a wonderful person, a great spiritual teacher on the planet, and very happy to have him with us and sharing his teachings. Simultaneously, I'm not an Eckart Tolle student per se, but we have some things in common and some differences, as mentioned previously. He's a little more Buddhist than I am, so to speak. Not that he would call himself Buddhist. They tend to be a little more passive. And Zen Buddhists are the ones that might chase you out of the temple with a stick. That's me, all right? So, anyway, I'm a nice guy. I speak softly, but I also carry a big stick. That's what martial arts is about on the level that it is. Sometimes I even have clients come in and they'll say things to me like, I'm in the now, or I'm present. In my training, if I were to say to my master or my teacher that I'm in the present moment, that master teacher would ask me to show them that I was in the present moment, and I might be asked to balance a water bottle on my head while standing on one foot while plugging my nose, okay? And again, these are the differences in general, as I've referenced them in the last episodes, in the previous episodes. There's a difference between the old school Buddhism and sort of Zen Buddhism and what has arisen in the Shaolin Temple with the martial aspects and so on and so forth. And again, to each his own. There are many ways to get from North Carolina to New York or North Carolina to California, etc. To each his own. Everybody has their own path. So in this particular path, I like to incorporate the physical body. I like to use the physical body. I like to train the physical body. I like to exercise the physical body and my ability to breathe, my ability to use breath to control my thinking, my emotions, my mood. I like to use my physical body to express and release pent-up frustration or bring healing to grief or whatever the case may be that I'm working with. So anyways, there's just a couple little ideas, some background, okay, about where some of this stuff comes from, some of its roots. Let's come back to this idea of the now. So the now means, from my perspective, of course, I'm just teaching from my perspective now, the now, okay, is this moment, and it's not the mind of yesterday. It's not like the monkey mind, the ego, the noise that you hear in your head, the chatter that's stuck in your biology all the way down to your cellular DNA, the record from your mom, your grandma, your father, your grandfather, etc. that got passed on to you that you're still hearing, and you contemplate, hey, this is me. When you reach a certain level of training, you start to recognize and realize that what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're listening to, etc., what's manifesting, it's not actually you. That's not you. That is your biology. That is your emotions. That is the root and the seed of previous emotions and karma that has been set forth by generations of people. Your job and who you are, the spirit that you are, and so on, the soul that you are, the watcher, the observer that you are, the will that you are. These are different names for pointing toward more of maybe who you really are, the authentic self, or what the Buddhists would call your true nature. That you is on a mission. Whether you realize it or not, you're on a mission. Some people realize it, some people don't realize it, but your mission, everybody's mission, is to go beyond wherever their mom, their dad, their grandmother, grandfather went. Okay, how far did they go? Your job, go beyond that. So when we talk about the now, when we talk about the power of now, the power of this moment, the power of this moment is essentially, one way of thinking about it, as I've been talking about it in some of the previous episodes, is about creating a gap in your experience. So rather than just habitually living and letting your biology dictate where you're going and assuming, listen very carefully, if you're paying attention, you'll catch this. Rather than assuming that this noise is who you are, I'm suggesting to you, you can discover for yourself, this is not who you are. It's a record of your biology. You can listen to other spiritual teachers, including Eckart Tolle and others, who will also point out to you that maybe this noise that you're hearing, that these voices that you're hearing, that you equate with yourself, maybe that's not you. And people who meditate for long periods of time and so on, regardless of what form of meditation they do, I'll say that in general, they begin to, again in general, they begin to practice watching and observing the thoughts, the moods, the emotions, the sensations, the feelings in the body, the layers of feelings that are going on in the body, be that sadness or grief or anger or frustration or stagnant chi or whatever they're observing. They observe that and they watch it move. One of the reasons that the mantra that I've shared with some of you before, it's a very old school mantra, that when you sit or you stand in meditation, you repeat to yourself, be still. Be still and know. Notice the mantra doesn't say be still and guess. It says be still and know, which means be still and tap into knowing. Okay? And then sometimes the mantra gets extended beyond that, but I'm going to leave it like that for now. That mantra becomes your doorway into meditation, especially when practiced often for an extended period of time, over some years and so on, because it's a command to the mind and to the body to begin to become still and to tap into a little bit loftier place. Now, the loftier place, like Eckart Tolle would refer to that in general, I've heard him refer to that as presence or the observer, okay, or what we sometimes call the watcher in you. You're watching, you're observing, you're rising above the thoughts, you're rising above the emotions. And in general, of course, he calls that, and other spiritual teachers call that awareness. So when you practice stillness, you can rise above the noise and the voices and the biology, which all represents, listen carefully, your past. So all of that is your past. Are you following what I'm saying? This is your past. So if you're going to have a greater future, a new moment needs to unfold. And if a new moment is going to unfold, then you have to create a gap between yourself and this noise, this confusion, this anomaly, this false self, this ego, this background noise, this interference, this disharmony. You have to create a gap. One of the ways to do that, which I highly recommend, is take up a Qigong practice. I'm happy to practice with you. Take up a martial art practice. There are many forms of martial art that you could become involved in and learn some forms and some different sets and some different movements. There's many different forms of martial art that you can practice that would be a benefit to you, because when you're doing complicated technique, complicated movements where you're trying to coordinate your breath and your physical movement, whether it's Qigong, whether it's martial art, you are bringing yourself into that place of awareness. You're bringing yourself into that place of awareness of breath, and you're using the body consciously to either move the body or keep the body very, very still. Both of those are practices that increase your awareness of what is going on. Now, what is one of the reasons that those types of practices, yoga would be included in this, by the way, why is it that some of those types of practices like this bring us into the moment? Well, we could say all kinds of things about that, but here's one that I haven't said that I want to share with you right now. I've said it before, but not necessarily in this video. So, one of the reasons is that that information that we call the past that I just spoke to, the noise, the confusion, the fear, all of this from the past, it's not just held in your DNA, it's not just held in your cellular memory, it's not just held in the breath that's stuck in your gut, although it is held there energetically. And when the energy begins to stagnate, the consciousness, your own mind, your own awareness, it also begins to stagnate. The moment you begin to practice breath of fire, the moment you begin to practice Qigong movement and you're focused on something and you're really focused on doing it correctly and you're maybe can't do it quite correct yet, but you're working on it, that brings you to the moment. One of the things that I love about these types of practices, which is why almost 40 years later I'm still doing them, is that it's the best of vacations for me. Some people like to go on vacation, have a little glass of wine, put their feet up, and look at the ocean, which is pretty nice, right? Sometimes. But I personally like my daily vacations and my daily routines of doing these kinds of practices because it's a vacation from all of the noise of my past. And I also want to share this idea as well, which I've shared in previous episodes. That information, okay, that ego, you can see in the way that I described it that it traces back to your grandmother's grandmother's grandmother, but it also is something that is part of the collective that you're feeding off of. In other words, there's a collective ego, there's a collective emotional body. I know it sounds all crazy and woo-woo, right? But here's the thing, gravity reaches from here to the moon, no one questions that. It's just like, oh yeah, there's gravity. Yeah, because now you know, right? But if you had to prove it, your own self without, others that proved it before you, it might be kind of difficult, right? Anyway, the emotional body is similar. So there are instruments that can measure our energy in relationship to the field of our heart center all the way to the moon, I'm told. That's an example, okay, of how far reaching our energy is. Well, we also have energy, again, in the realm of ego, which would be the realm of fear and the realm of disharmony and those things that I described earlier. And it's collective. It's not just yours, it's also everybody else's. So one thing that would save you a tremendous amount of time and help you have a wakeful moment and create a gap in your past, therefore the past is not just creating your future, but you create a gap, a conscious moment. You come into a moment of now, a present moment of now, where you're rising above all the habit and the noise and everything. Again, it takes practice. Qigong, meditation, breath work, something like that typically needs to be involved, okay? It's not just something you do because you want to. Again, usually involves some kind of breath, some kind of shift of mind, some type of practice, like a Qigong, like a yoga, like a martial art, something that brings you into that present state, and you take that breath and you rise up and you come up higher in your own being, and you're rising up in that moment in your awareness. And now your breath becomes different, your mindset is a little bit different. And now in that space, if you could hold on to it, most people, right, the number one, they can't really achieve that just like that. So a lot of people are not doing it, right? But most people with a little practice can start doing it more often. And then what the beginner does is they access a little bit of that, oh, hey, I feel spacious. And then right away, they're throwing it away already. Very quickly, they go right back out of the moment and they're right back into their past. They get one phone call that goes the wrong way or whatever it is, and they throw their now away and they go back to repeating their past. So that is why one of the trainings that teachers like myself share with people, and my teachers have always shared with me, is that when something negative happens and you're starting to react, that's how you know you're going back into your past. You're reacting. You're not responding, you're reacting. You're not responding consciously, you're reacting. If you've listened to some of my other talks, or you've read my book, or you've come to training sessions, I've talked to you about this. If you're having a tough Thanksgiving and grandma's telling this story one too many times, or people have had one too many drinks, or whatever it is, you can go outside and create a conscious moment by practicing standing tree meditation, or this hugging the tree meditation, and practicing your breath of fire. And my grandmother used to say, "What is he doing out there? Why is he still doing that?" But I would go out and do that, and I would come back into the house, and I'd be in a much better state. I'd be in a much better mood. And for me, I was no longer carrying my past with me. I was having a conscious moment. Now, when you learn to expand the moment and you learn to expand your awareness, and you have some degree of emptiness, some degree of calm, as opposed to the noise of the past and the confusion and the fear and everything else, then you're in a place which many teachers will say is the place of infinite possibility, called now. When you're in the now, infinite possibility exists. I spoke about this in one of my previous episodes here, where I was talking about the hub of the wheel versus the spokes. If you're on the spoke, you're on the linear line, and you're just going back and forth on this linear line. And that can even seem like you're just going around and around in circles. But the hub in the center is about coming back to the center, and if you're able to do that, you get to pick which parallel lifetime, which parallel experience you want to go on. So movies like Ground Hog Day and other movies like that, where you have this option of going this route or going this route. Back to the Future played with that a little bit. The new relatively new TV series called The Flash plays with that. There is another show called Erica or something like that. It was on Netflix. She goes back and sees her therapist, and they do a lot of this going back and forth in time. And many physicists, at least this is my quick explanation and how I would convey this, many physicists talk about time like that. It is not linear. We're actually bouncing around back and forth. So rather than getting too much into the details of that, I want to focus on this idea that in order to have some control, some authentic control over this dynamic, you have to learn to quiet yourself. You have to learn to quiet your mind, and you have to learn to stay there in that quieter, let's call it that, in that quieter space for extended periods of time. It's not just about like, oh, I feel a little bit meditative and I feel nice, and then, oh my God, I can't believe that happened, and oh my God, and then you're running around living your life again, right? Which is how it is for most people. Which is why I highly recommend that you get involved in a Qigong practice, that you get involved in a martial art practice, a yoga practice, a meditation practice, some type of practice that you're doing regularly, that in the beginning you think to yourself, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. When you realize the benefits of it, and when you realize how much it influences and changes your life, how much of an impetus for good in your life that it is, Because any form of movement, any form of breath, any form of physical practice like that, number one, you're embodying it, you're using the body, you're working with the body, so you're also making the body healthier. The mind is becoming clearer. And then from that place of clarity and that place of centeredness and that place of presence or present time called now, you have begun, listen carefully, this is the punchline, this is the punchline, bam, you have begun, in that moment, you've begun to understand that there is no future based on yesterday anymore. The new future is being created from that new moment, that clean moment, that pristine moment of right now. So like when I coach people privately and so on and so forth, I was just doing this with somebody, so maybe think about this. I'll say this briefly. I was talking to someone, and I was working with this person, and I said, this person was really struggling with these different things going on in her world. And I said, let me explain this as clearly as I can. We need a clean moment. We need a clean and pristine moment. We need to have a gap, and I like that word a lot because I think sometimes this now business, sometimes talking about now and the power of now and all of that, sometimes it's a little too much. Because it's just like a lot of spiritual teachings. I think it gets watered down depending on who's teaching it and how they're teaching it and so on. But anyway, I like the idea of a gap because it helps you to understand that the now is a gap. You're creating a gap. You're creating space in between your past and your future. If you do that, then your new moment, your clean moment, your pristine moment, well, that's creating your future. That's creating your future. If you don't have the clean and pristine moment and get to the place of clarity of mind, then the past will ongoingly create the future. And when that happens, you don't actually have a future. You only have the repeating of your past, which is Ground Hog Day. So, don't get too stressed out about this subject. Instead, practice. Exhale your breath. Inhale your breath. Exhale your breath. Push it out. Inhale your breath. Exhale your breath. Inhale, raise the hands. Exhale. Bring your mind right here. With some practice like this, over time, doesn't even take that long to begin to see results. You start becoming calmer, clearer, more spacious. And when you are, instead of getting those yucky phone calls from your past, you get the new phone calls, the new opportunities that make you smile and bring joy as opposed to pain. Pain is always from the past. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that was helpful to you. Have a blessed rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Remember to breathe, create a gap.